The question today that we get quite often. So, is it possible to be vegan or vegetarian in Georgia? Are you doomed for starving, maybe? Or the opposite, you will find lots of options in each and every restaurant and bar. So today I will cover this topic from my perspective, so being vegetarian for over 19 years now, with some, let's call it, episodes of being on vegan diet. Welcome to the Caucasus Podcast, where we talk about literature, culture, history and more. The Caucasus Podcast is brought to you by Języki Kaukazu, Languages of the Caucasus. Let's get started with today's episode. So before we dive into today's episode and today's topic of the Caucasus Podcast, just a short reminder that each and every episode you will find also in everything that we have on our YouTube channel. You will find also in a article form on our website, so on językniekaukazu.pl, on the website of our publishing house. So if you prefer to come back to that or maybe to read it, then you can go to our website and just read it for around, just revise and look maybe for some names I'll be using in today's episode. Exactly like that. And what else? If you prefer just to listen it, maybe not just on YouTube, so we are also in almost every, I would say, podcasting app. So if you prefer to go to Spotify, for example, or Apple Podcasts, we are there as well with our Caucasus Podcast. So okay, we have this settled, so let's get started with today's episode, and let's start maybe with the traditional Georgian cuisine. So the fact is that meat is very popular ingredient in general in majority of dishes in Georgia. I would say that the traditional Georgian food is really based on many fresh ingredients with several spices that are really good for your health and digestion. Even now, many dishes are that you will order in the restaurant are not prepared with pre-made products, for example. But the additional trait is that the Georgian cuisine is really flour-based, rich, and which not really may be very helpful to your digestion as such. Yeah, so just to keep in mind this info as well. So if we have this fresh ingredients, etc., you have to also keep in mind that this is really meat or dairy or both based. So that is why it may not be really an option for vegans and vegetarians. Or maybe the question would be, what is then the option to eat for vegans and vegetarians in Georgia, as there are many dishes that are meat based. So is really fasting food like the Lenten food really vegan? Because this is something that you may hear. So according to Georgian Church, so Georgian Autocatholic Church, you should from time to time, there are defined days where you are supposed to do that, restrain from eating anything, let's call it animal related, and fast. So have like fasting food. So my experience with that is that the approach to fasting and to Lenten food really varies between families, and it really varies on the level of them being devoted to their religion as such, and based on also family traditions. Nevertheless, for many, like the fasting food in Georgia is really equivalent of vegan. So no meat, dairy, eggs, animal-based oils, etc. And I know many people who are prior to traveling to Georgia and they want to learn this phrase like fasting food or Lenten food, so they can order from that part of the menu. And now, when you are vegan or vegetarian in Georgia, you should remember that it doesn't really give you like 100% guarantee that it will be, for example, no butter or no meat-based broth or honey, for example, used in your dish. The reason for that is, as I mentioned, it's really the understanding of the Georgian food for fasting. It may vary among people, so this is one thing. This is similar to, let's say, the Catholic Church, for example, in Poland, when people that are a part of the Catholic Church, they are not allowed on some days to eat meat. However, yes, they can eat fish while fasting, although fish is, of course, an animal as well. Yeah, so you there is a big chance, I would say. However, it is not like 100% guaranteed. It doesn't equal, yeah, because it's for different reasons. So the other questions that we get a lot: so is potato hinkali vegan? Because there is potato, and about potato or mushroom hinkali, for example, I hear a lot, really, from people who are vegans or vegetarians, and they are in Georgia or planning to go to Georgia. So the simplest answer is no. It is not vegan, because in this flour-based like dumpling type, I would say, dishes, there is very high probability that there will be butter inside, and it depends on the recipe, it may be like matsoni. So this is kefir yogurt like product that it can be used also to just to make the dough. You may not taste it as such, you may not feel it, but it will be part of the dough used during the preparations. Yeah, so it will be dairy there. So it is possible for vegetarians but not for vegans, and that is why even if there is a dish like with vegetables as a main ingredient, for example potato hinkali, this is just potato, or mushroom hinkali, this is just mushroom in theory, there is a big chance that will be either one of them or simply both. Yeah, so what to eat really as being vegan and vegetarian in that case in Georgia. So I'm vegetarian, as I mentioned, and for me eating in Georgia really is much easier now than when I was vegan for some time. Yeah, so for vegetarians, as you may already figured it out a little bit, there are options like with cheese or with potatoes, like potato pie, so let's call it chwezeli in Georgian, or hinkaliu, that is without meat. And one of the dishes that it can be also acceptable for, let's say, both groups, this is ajab sandali, which is mixed vegetables baked together in an oven, let's say, bake together those vegetables. However, there's always a slight risk. It depends how which risk you are prepared for, let's say, slight risk that there will be used like animal-based oil instead of, for example, butter or plant-based oil, but from my experience it's rather rare. Yeah, so luckily also what helps us, I say, being vegan or vegetarian in Georgia, is that plant-based oils are cheaper, and it can be also one of the reasons. So nevertheless, it's always better to ask if you have doubts. Yeah, so once, for example, I saw a menu and it was written like fried potatoes. So it was not just a translation, let's say, for tourists. So I kept in mind that you never know what happens. So then I just asked the waiter whether there was just potatoes, fried potatoes, and the surprised waiter said no, they are fried together with meat. Yeah, because it was dish ojahuri, but it was said, like put there, that it is fried potatoes. If you do not know the dish, if you do not know the ingredients, then it's always better to ask. Yeah, so the same goes for lobio dish and lobiani. So one is like thick bean soup, and the second like is flour-based pie-like dish with the beans filling inside. I saw several recipes for both of those dishes, and I have to admit not all of them were like no meat based broths. It really varied. So it's always better to ask in general if you have any doubts. If you have any doubts, it's always better to ask whether there is any meat inside, or you may be more specific. What do you mean? Yes, because for some people, broth, it may not be a myth, like meat as such. Yeah. So maybe now the question you are thinking: will you starve as vegan or vegetarian in Georgia? So normally, from my perspective, I do not eat a lot of like flour-based dishes. I do prefer whole grains for vegetables, tofu, and other goodies that you may get. But when in Georgia, one of the ways I manage to eat, I keep it similar, just to buy lots of fruits and vegetables from the local market. Yeah, so that is an option as well. And I just sometimes eat in the restaurant, I would say the minimum of the hot dishes I need to eat during the day. and then I just focus what I can buy. So Georgian tomatoes, cucumbers, onions, lots of herbs, for example, carrots, many fruits are just phenomenally tasty, really, and you can survive. Like, you can be really full with that during your stay in Georgia. Yeah, I usually buy everything. I do not need to cook, and I can eat raw without any preparations, especially that if I travel to Georgia, for example, then in summer, in autumn, you will find many fruits in that time and many vegetables you can buy just from local markets, or even sold like on the pavement, next to the pavement and street. Where can I get tofu? Because this is also a question that we get from time to time, and as we see this question appearing, like tofu, soy milk, almond milk. If you are vegan, for example, in Georgia, is it possible to buy it in general? So I have been observing for like being vegan and vegetarian, and the situation of people being vegan and vegetarian, this reality for over 15 years now. We are closer and closer to 20, I think. So only recently, from that perspective, I can tell you that there are and have been some possibilities to buy, for example, tofu or plant-based drinks, so so-called milks, like almond milk and soy milk, etc. However, you will not find this, of course, in each and every shop in every town, but mainly, first of all, in big supermarkets, in Tbilisi and other bigger cities in Georgia. Yeah, so still there are few, really very few, I would even say, vegans and vegetarians in Georgia, like Georgians. So the produce of this kind is not really accessible, and it's not that popular. So additionally, it may happen that people would not really understand what you mean by saying the concept of being vegan, or may mix it with being vegetarian. So simply, as the reason is because this type of diet is not that popular in Georgia, and there are not really that many Georgians who are on vegan or vegetarian diet. There have been even some programs in TV that were to explain people what really means to be vegan or vegetarian, and those people were telling, who were Georgians and on this type of diet, were saying what it means to be vegetarian, how then, let's say, cope with their daily meals, how they prepare it, which type of ingredients they find, etc. So my thought, I would say, after watching those stories, is that really the concept is still not that much grounded, rooted in the Georgian society. We are not there yet. Maybe we will be. However, yeah, there is always some kind of however. So my observations are also from the, let's call it, positive side, that it started really changing with the wave of foreigners, let's call them expats or girls, living in Tbilisi. So when soy milk or almond milk started being also in that time available, let's say, like fancy cafes in the city center of Tbilisi, and also now available in many other places. Still, we are talking about big cities, really, and city centers. So additionally, I found a couple of vegan restaurants in Tbilisi, and there you can find, for example, this full, tofu quinoa dishes. However, they are like 3 times or 3 times, or let's settle with that, 3 times more expensive, as it is dinner just in a non-vegan standard restaurant. Albeit it was very, very tasty. So, and I was quite surprised, to be honest, like, oh, wow, this is the change in Georgia that is happening. There are very few of them. I just found like 2 or 3, I think. Okay, so to sum up, being vegan or vegetarian in Georgia, for sure, you may need a little bit, to put, let's say, more effort into your daily meals, into finding the dishes for you, and to a little bit balance your diet, not to eat just bread and flour for the whole time. Yeah, than in comparison with the meat eaters, for sure. Nevertheless, it is really possible to eat a lot and to eat really, really tasty, especially if you focus on the seasonal produce and not hope really for pre-made, ready-to-eat vegan dishes that you can find in supermarket. No, not in Georgia yet, probably. When I first traveled to Georgia, I was already vegetarian, and I can tell you that I have been never hungry in Georgia. Yes, and staying there. So it is really, really possible. Yeah. So I hope that with this episode we have given you a little bit of insights from the diet perspective, from daily life perspective, and I hope you liked it. It's also a little bit different episode that we had, but we get this question a lot, so I thought I can also share from my perspective. Let's call it that way. If you liked this episode, remember to let us know by liking it, subscribe to our channel, or if you want just to go through the names of the dishes I mentioned, you may go to our website, języknikaukazu.pl, the website of our publishing house, and just read a little bit more. Also, we have linked there in the article on our website, like the first lesson, the initial words you may use in the restaurant or in general about cooking and about food in Georgian. This is very, very simple and useful information just to know few words in Georgian that you can use in that. So the link for that you will find also in the article. So we have put it there as well. So you may go to our website if you want also not only to know about Georgia in general or Caucasus in general, but also learn the language. Go to also our website and then check the study materials, the study books we have for the alphabet, we have for learning Georgian verbs, and we have the online course, and also self-paced study book just to learn basics of Georgian. So the link for that you will find in the description of today's episode of the Caucasus podcast as well. Thank you very much. Let us know in the comments how many vegans and vegetarians do we have here. Yes, I'm really curious how it looks like. From your perspective, what are the dishes that you like? How do you manage your diet not to make sure that you do not eat only khachapuri for the whole day being in Georgia? So I'm curious how it looks from your perspective. Thank you very much for this episode, and see you in the next one, or maybe in our lessons of Georgian language. Bye bye.